In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? The three magazines I analysed were XXL, The Source and Hip Hop Weekly. Each of these magazines kept with their individual hard style. This showed unity within the magazine. When creating my magazine, I ensured to do this with my front cover and contents page. Like a real media product, my magazine entailed the same conventions. When analysing the three magazines, it's quite obvious that the artists on the front cover are well established. When seeing the artists on the front cover, you could instantly tell what genre of music magazine was based on, as it used typical urban mise-en-scène. The front covers of XXL and The Source both used body language and props in order to make it clear what genre of music it was. The Source's front cover featured Ice Cube with a hat and cigar. This is usually associated with hip-hop. Ice Cube flaunts a snarled lip on the main image. This shows aggressive body language, which is stereotypical of an urban nature. On XXL's front cover, 50 Cent is their main artist. Like The Source, they have also used props. A mic is featured on the front cover. This clearly shows that it is a hip-hop magazine. 50 Cent's back is facing the audience, but his head is turned around for direct address. This shows arrogance, which is something found in hip-hop a lot. When analysing the cover of Hip Hop Weekly, the front cover was Nicki Minaj. This is quite unusual for rap and hip-hop, as they are seen as masculine, and Hip Hop Weekly's front cover is female. You instantly see there is a problem with Nicki Minaj by looking at the main image. There's no direct address because she's looking at the floor. This may mean that hip-hop may have not changed because they do not show a woman looking arrogant and powerful, but broken and upset. When making my front cover, I decided to use a female in order to challenge conventions. From looking at Hip Hop Weekly's cover, it's quite obvious that Nicki Minaj is quite heavily made up with wigs and makeup. I decided against this and used minimal makeup and simple hair. This is unusual, as women in hip-hop are usually sexualised, and I wanted the opposite for my magazine. My artist is natural looking and gives a direct address to the audience, but does not show any particular body language that could be interpreted as arrogance. The shot is a mid-close-up. For a hip-hop magazine, this is quite conventional. The cover lines across The Source, XXL, use colloquial language. A cover line on The Source reads, "Start to this gangster ish." The cover lines of XXL said 50 faces of 50 cop 'em all. Most people associated with an urban culture would automatically understand this, as it is very typical of a hip-hop magazine, as hip-hop artists use this type of language in their music. When making my magazine, I always use colloquial language. I did this to draw an urban audience to my magazine. Like XXL, I listed a number of artists that would feature in my magazine, but position them as a footer as opposed to cover lines. When referring to an artist in my magazine, I created an enigma by saying things as more of an aura, which who anyone was into hip-hop or R&B would know that the feature would be Rita Ora, but it does it in a completely way that does not give it away. The main cover line is the artist's name, which is the same colour as the masthead, which shows the artist's importance. This is ultimately attract readers. The cover lines are shaped around the main image, and the image of the artist is slightly off-centre. How does your media product represent particular social groups? My masthead is a bold, eye-catching font. I use this font as it is similar to the one used in The Source and works well at making an impact and not being too busy. It is placed at the top of the page in the centre. I thought this worked best because when analysing XXL, I found that the masthead was not the main thing you focused on, as it was placed in the top left. My magazine shows representation of an urban social group by colloquial language used on the cover lines. This stereotypically is a part of an urban lifestyle. My main image is not what you would see in a typical hip-hop magazine, as it is an Asian female, but I chose this type of image to break conventions. I would hope this would attract more readers to my magazine. In my contents page, I have used an image of a white male. This is also going against conventions, as white males are rarely associated with hip-hop culture. On my contents page, there is a short explanation to the cover story, which acts as an introduction. This creates an enigma, as it says why she can't decide who makes the best breakfast, boys or girls. This is referring to her being bisexual. In the double-page spread, my artist talks more about this, which is quirky and will keep the readers more interested. What kind of media institution might distribute your product on more art? After analysing The Source, XXL and Hip Hop Weekly, I think L. London Macmillan, the publisher of Source, or Harris specifications the publisher of XXL would distribute Blast. However, the publishers of Hip Hop Weekly probably wouldn't publish my magazine, as it entails more gossip and breaking news rather than the artist's music, which mine focuses on more. I also think publishers such as MTV might be interested. Be the audience for your media product. When conducting my questionnaire, I found that 50% of my respondents would follow a magazine on Twitter and others wouldn't. This shows that the type of genre and culture who would be interested in reading my magazine. I also asked my respondents what genre of music they'd listen to. My questionnaire says 70% said dance, 33% said indie and 50% said urban music. I also asked what their ethnicity is. They all answered British, but this does not necessarily mean they are white. I therefore used a white male on my contents page. I then asked how much they were willing to pay for a magazine. The results were that 3% would pay £5 plus for a magazine, 54% would pay £4 to £4.99, 23% would pay £2 to £3.99, and 20% 99p to £1.99. I priced my magazine at £2.99 and I thought this is a reasonable price. How did you address your audience? By looking directly at the magazine, a reader would not instantly be able to tell this is a hip-hop magazine, but after reading the cover lines this would become immediately obvious. This is because I completely went against conventions where hip-hop is concerned. However, I did give the artist's direct address to ensure the reader felt like they were being enticed by the image. Like XXL, I listed different artists that would feature in the magazine, so if the cover story didn't interest them, other artists would. This presented a footer to attract the audience. I use well-established rappers like Drake. What have you learnt about the technologies from the process of constructing this product? The technologies I used to make my magazine were the Mac, Adobe Photoshop, digital processing software, Camera and WordPress to publish my initial ideas. My initial ideas, drafts, final pieces and progress. By using Photoshop on the Mac, I was able to use margins in order to make my words symmetrical and produce gutters when laying out my content page. I also used the glue stick tool, which ensured all the colours I used were a perfect match. I also used the healing tool in order to make my artist look flawless and more professional. I will then record this piece to make my evaluation. I use this program called Final Cut later to add the video to YouTube. I downloaded fonts for my masthead and cover lines off font.com that will go with my genre and target audience. Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from it to the full product? The progress I made from my college magazine to my final product is that I found out what went well and what was eye-catching and what wasn't. When making my college mag, I found that putting the main image behind the masthead worked well, as the magazine is not well-established magazine. Like my college magazine, I sculpted cover lines around the main image, and I thought this worked well. However, I found when making my college magazine contents page, the images I took did not fit well. I stretched the picture in order to avoid dead space. However, this ruined the quality of images. So when taking my college magazine, I ensured the pictures I took were suitable.